it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. I am bringing you a guest that is really near and dear to my heart. It has a personal component for me, and I'll share a little bit more about that later. Stacey Ryan is the Chief Operating Officer of School of Rock, also known as the COO. Okay. School of Rock is the most revolutionary music education school in the world. Stacey and her team are responsible for all safety compliance matters for the system, ensuring that the successful operation and complex environment that weaves talented artists, children, and parents together in a safe, creative, and educational environment. Stacey has a huge passion and commitment to women in leadership and a strong desire to see more women taking the role in the C-suite, and has started an organization called Community Resource Group, a front for the organization. Stacey, you're going to share more about this, is Front Women and what you're doing with that. You're one busy lady.
Yeah, when they always say when you find stuff that you love, you never work a day in your life. And I truly am humbled to have that experience. So
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
yeah.
I agree that truly agree with it. I have to ask you, I'm going to share, my son went to School of Rock. It had a huge impact. How did you end up being COO of School of Rock? Where did that journey of walking into the C-suite, where did it start and how did it land there?
Yeah, I mean, it was a long journey to get there for sure. And, my entire life, I grew up working with children. My mother did, daycare in our home. And I always had aspirations to be a kindergarten teacher. And that was what my focus was towards. And then when the time came, something didn't feel right. So I actually took a side step and I started managing a home health aid agency. And after a year there, I realized I loved business, but I really missed working with children. So I found my first organization, which combined both education and business. And I spent 10 years there at Huntington Learning Centers. I learned so much. I came in at an entry-level position, and I'll never forget my first visit with the regional manager. She was getting to know me and said, "Tell me about your goals. What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I want your job." And she sat back and laughed and said, "I've never had someone say that to me." And I said, "I'm not saying I want to take you out. I'm just saying I want to work towards overseeing a whole region. That's what I want to do." So I've always been very clear with what my goals have been. We had a new CEO come in temporarily there. She saw something in me and started mentoring me. And that was the first mentorship experience that I had. And it really helped shape, who I was and moving forward. She left that organization. She went to another one. I stayed for a few years, and then I made the decision to move on also. And when I reached out to her and said, "Hey, may I use you as a reference?" her response was, "No need. I want you here.
Wow.
Join us at Goddard." So I moved on to Goddard Preschools. I spent a few years there. She again then left and moved on to another organization. I stayed. I ultimately signed a franchise agreement with Goddard because I was like,
Wow.
what? I'm gonna do my own thing.
You're gonna do this. I'm gonna run my own school.
Yeah, and Ivy, culture is so important to me, and I wasn't finding the one that I felt was like my place, my home. So I reached a point where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to make my own culture. I'll start my own. So I did that, transferred everything, and I had some time to kill. And I reached out to that same woman, Shauna Homan, and I said, "Hey, I've got some time to kill. Do you need help?" And she had just started the gig as CEO of School of Rock. Her response was, "Start tomorrow." So I came into School of Rock as a consultant with no intention of staying. That was 9 years ago. Life happened, and it just put me down a path where I ended up taking a full-time role at School of Rock. I ran our events and partnerships for a bit. It was the first time in almost 20 years I was doing anything other than operations. So it was an uncomfortable year, but I learned so much. So I'm so
I was
grateful
going to
for it.
say, sometimes like we're encouraged to step out of what we know day to day, and it's so scary.
It is, it is. And I always tell this story. My first call, I'm not a musician. You know, when people ask what instrument I play, it's the keyboard on my laptop. And
Touche. I
so
like that.
my first call with a major festival said, send us your stage pot, send us your backline, and we're all set. I said, great, you'll have it end of day. I hung up and I frantically Googled, what is a stage pot? What is a backline? And how do I create this? Because I had no idea
What
what it was. So
what is what does this mean in layman's terms? In
exactly.
operations terms? Because operations, like we could figure anything out. Just tell me what I need to figure out.
Right, just tell me what it is. So it was an interesting year. And then after a year of that, I learned so much. The former CEO asked me to take over company school operations, in which my reply was, yes, that I can do in my sleep. So I took over company operations. We were 16 schools at the time and a team of three. Fast forward throughout the next few years, I ended up taking over franchise operations, then international. I oversee the entire organization with a team of 19. We own and operate 47 locations, and we have a total of about 365 locations across 19 countries. So it's
Wow.
been quite the journey, but one that I am so grateful for and have learned so much throughout.
So I just want to do a little bit of um, backstory for our listeners who are not familiar with School of Rock, who might not have been exposed to it. Share a little bit about School of Rock, what the organization is.
Yeah, so School of Rock is as you said, revolutionary music education in the world. So what we do is we teach students, which are children and adults, how to play musical instruments by putting them in bands and on stages. So we teach music theory through the song, and we teach through classic rock. So our students are playing things like the Beatles and AC/DC and Kiss and the music that their parents grew up listening to and have so many fond memories with. So what we do is we pull these kids together, we put them in a band, they learn their parts for their song. They rehearse with their groups on a weekly basis. They do that for about 3 to 4 months. And then they go and they put on a show. So every 3 to 4 months, our students are on stages performing in real venues, on real stages to real audiences. And the audiences have gone from their small local schools all the way up to playing iconic stages like Lollapalooza and Rock in Rio and Red Rocks Amphitheater in Colorado. So some really incredible stages our students have had the opportunity to take. But the most special thing about School of Rock, we sell music lessons, but what we actually deliver is so much more than that. And that's where my passion for this organization has really come into play, because when I joined School of Rock, I was so passionate about youth enrichment and education. And I came here for what I thought was going to be temporary. And I remember standing in front of a mirror telling myself, trying to convince myself, you're still impacting kids' lives. You're still enriching lives. This is still education. It's music education. But what I quickly learned is that we help kids with their confidence levels. We help kids with suicidal ideation. We are the place where kids who don't feel like they belong anywhere, kind of like I couldn't find that place where I felt was right for me. We're that place that we don't care about the color of your skin or your pronoun or the music you listen to or the clothes that you wear. Like, all we care about is music. And our community is so passionate and so incredible. And over 9 years, I have thousands of stories from staff members and parents like you and students who have grown up through and staff members who started as students and now have a career with us
Yeah.
on how School of Rock saved their lives.
So
And
I'm going to jump in for a
Yeah.
second. My son was starting sixth grade, and the school he was going through, the middle school he was about to go to had no, in New York City public school, it had very little arts enrichment. Now you're looking at a mom who was a former dancer who was horrified. Like, how do you not have music? How do you not have art? How do you not have this? Like we have to. So we went to through a friend's friend, we went to a School of Rock performance, and my son looked over, he goes, I'll do this after school next year. Yeah, like I'll do this. This will be fun. I'll go play I want to play. I said, well, what do you want to do? He goes, I want to play the drums. I was like, okay. And signed him up the beginning of sixth grade for School of Rock. What we didn't know when we did this, I did it as a parent saying, and a parent with an arts background saying, my child must be exposed to the arts, period. Sign them up for, if it's going to be music, done. You want drums, done. And, off we went. What I didn't ever anticipate is when he started middle school, he started a very bad period of his life. And there was bullying that started. And middle school was a pretty crappy experience for him, bottom line. And through School of Rock, there were friends, there was community, there was something the kids were working on together, so there were his regular lessons, and then there was performances and just, kind of going there after school, and they did their homework together, and then they'd have rehearsal. And the kids were every age. I remember a little boy, if my son was like 11, he was 7, who was like an amazing guitarist. And, then they'd run into each other on the streets of New York. And I'm like, they're talking, it transcended as you're talking about. It helped kids see other peers, no matter what. It didn't matter color, gender, age, nothing. We're in this together. We're playing. And I'm like, the day he came home and he goes, yeah, I'm going to do the next show. I said, oh, cool. What are you doing? He goes, oh, the Stones. I said, you're playing the Stones? Um, and he did that through high school, and he went on to LaGuardia High School, not for music, but for something else. But it helped starting to mold him. And today he's out in LA working in the entertainment industry.
It's so incredible. I
So
love
it
these stories.
does. It's a vehicle to, as a mom, it was a vehicle for a piece of arts, an arts background, which I always find is important. You have to do something. If it's sports, if it's arts, do something.
Right.
But it was so much more.
Yeah. And I love those stories. I actually got teary-eyed as you were talking about it because I can't imagine being a child in this day and age with social media. I mean, for me, at least, home was like your safe space, right? You could get away from it if you were being bullied, where now that's not the case. And, to have an activity where they feel that sense of community and accomplishment and acceptance, where the phone is gone, right? You're holding your instrument. Your phone is not near you. They're not on that stuff. They're not susceptible to it. And we have very strict code of conducts within our school. So we operate on a set of core values, and community and acceptance really are at the top of it. And, now 25 years later from when School of Rock started, we see bands that started with friendships in School of Rock headlining festivals and playing stages at Bonnaroo. And we've got American Idol happening right now, where it's like every episode there's another School of Rock student, former student, instructor, somebody on. Like, we don't even know where to watch because there's so many people that are doing it. And not everybody takes the career in music. And that's why we pride ourselves on just those life skills that we teach the students. It's not just about music, it's about being a good human and being kind.
And you've accomplished that.
Thank you.
On being the COO and being a woman in the boardroom now, and a company that, and thank you for sharing the numbers and the stats earlier, that most people see like the School of Rock in the neighborhood and it's like, oh, that's nice. But thinking about it as a full business, massive global organization.
Yeah.
You have a lot on your plate on a daily basis.
Yes. I have an amazing team by my side. I couldn't do it without them.
And you have done in your background, you've done an enormous amount in team development. What have you found as one of your greatest strengths in building, a team of 19 in an organization of this size at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like leadership skills are something that will never be perfect, right? And every stage of your career, you're looking to tweak or fine tune or adjust certain things. And going from an on-site operator to someone who manages managers of managers of managers is a very different stage, in every step along the way, having to make changes in my approaches and accept them and learn them myself. I pride myself on being an incredibly transparent manager. And, my team always knows where they stand and where our opportunities are and where their successes are as well. So I celebrate them, but I also have high levels of expectation. And they know that I only have that level of expectation because I know where their capabilities are as well. And I always work to get the most out of them. And, it's a partnership. They need me and I need them. So we have to work together and find the way to do that in the best way possible. So communication is so critically important. And I am confident in saying that I don't believe there's anybody on my team who wouldn't feel comfortable coming to me and saying, hey, Stacey, I need to talk to you. This kind of upset me the other day. And feeling very comfortable in doing that. And I value that so much. And in those moments, I stop and I just listen with open ears. And I think to myself, which is the same approach we take with our franchisees, I always remind myself, maybe they're right. I'm not perfect. I'm not always right. So listening to what they have to say with the understanding of maybe they're right, and then finding that solution and bridging it together.
I have to ask you this, what has surprised you in your journey? Because
Um,
you've had an amazing journey.
Thank you. Thank you. I would say the thing that has surprised me the most is the number of mentors and allies I have collected along my journey. And I say collected because that's what I do. And when I find good people, I tell them I won't let you go. FYI, you're stuck with me for life. And I've had so many mentors for different things along different stages. And all of them I continue to really keep in touch with and have strong relationships with. And it has surprised me to see how many people will go out and activate themselves on the behalf of someone else's career and to help promote somebody else. That was a really nice lesson for me to learn along the way. And I hope that I am doing my part and can continue to do more to pay that forward.
I think it's so important to have mentors in our lives in all ways. I've owned and run a business with, 30 some odd years now. And I still, have people that I look to as mentors
Absolutely.
in the decision making, in people, a trusted group that I could toss some crazy ideas, you
Yeah.
know.
And the people who help you be like, well, did you think about this side of it? Oh gosh, no, I didn't think of that. And it's so easy when you're above it or outside of it, when you're in it. You don't always see all those things. So that's why partnership is so important, because it just adds this other layer of perception and insight that you may have not considered, and you won't hear it unless you're willing to.
Right. I like, one of my favorite expressions is, we don't see the forest from the trees. And we say that very quickly, but if we actually think about it for a second, you say, okay, what does it mean? Is we're in the forest, we're surrounded by trees. All we are is we're seeing trees around us, but we don't see we're in the forest. And so
Right.
you can't see the stream that is just outside to the right of you, or, an amazing something outside to the left, um, because we only see what we see. And I think it's so important, although that we do that for so many of our clients, people don't always realize that we have to do that for ourselves too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that saying.
So tell me more about front women.
Sure. I love front women. Front women's my passion project, my little baby. So when I was awarded the role of COO at School of Rock, it was the first time in my career, Ivy, I felt that I could exhale and just sit for a moment and not be so laser focused on, okay, this is what I need to do to get to the next step, the next step, the next step. It was such an uphill battle. And then when I got there, I was like, oh my gosh, I can sit back and I can breathe for a minute, just for a minute, right? But that minute was glorious. And in that minute, I realized how underrepresented women are in the C-suite, and that I am now part of this very small group of women that sit in these types of roles. And only 1 in 4 positions in a C role are represented by a woman, and 1 in 16 are women in color. So the numbers are even worse when we start to dig into it. And with that understanding, I felt the need to start to take my role a little bit differently. And I felt an increased level of responsibility to all of the women who are just starting on that journey that I did 20 years ago. And Front Women is my way of doing that. So I had this idea. I called one of the women on my team, Jill Livick, and I said, I have this idea of this thing I want to do. And I explained it to her. I said, do you want to do it with me? And she said, let's do it. Because I knew she was already passionate about that topic.
Right.
So Front Women is a community resource group, and we just pull incredible women together on a quarterly basis. And we do workshops together. Everyone is welcome to join. You don't have to be a woman. You could be a man. You can, whatever you want to do. If you want to be part of this movement, please come join us. And what we do is we start to dissect things like imposter syndrome, like fighting microaggressions, how to be aware of them, and how to be, part of the solution and not part of the problem. We just finished in January, we did a panel with 4 amazing women, and just asking questions and hearing their journeys and their learnings along the way. And every quarter, we also put out a newsletter. So we'll interview an incredible woman who has just started to pave her way and ask specific questions, and what are their favorite books and what are their learnings along the way. So it's all about finding ways to mentor, to learn together. Every interview, every workshop, everything, I learned so much and I get so much out of it. Even after hours of prep for a call, when we're in the call and listening to the conversations and the dialogue, I always have a moment where I'm like, wow, this is so powerful. And I never thought of it that way. So it's just a really great group of people who come together and try and be part of the movement, because 27% of C-suite roles, it's not enough. And
It is
if
not enough. Let's just go here again. 27%
right,
of C-suite roles are women. Now, granted, if you go back, and I'll date myself here, that's an amazing growth over the last 30 years, and we're not done, is the point.
we have, at the current rate, we won't see gender equality for another 130 plus years. And men and women join the workforce at the same rate. So at entry level, we're at a 50-50. But then what happens is, for every 10 men who are promoted to senior manager roles, it's only 7 women. And that's where the gap starts. And then it just continues to get wider and wider. So the goal of Front Women is to learn together, to educate and uplift each other, and to find ways to continue to, break through these barriers.
I love it. And first of all, congratulations for taking this initiative on.
Thank you.
And as woman to woman, thank you for taking the initiative on. I have to say, how can our listeners, learn more about you, learn more about School of Rock, and learn more about Front Women?
Yeah, so I am on all the places. I'm on Instagram as Stacey Ryan. LinkedIn, you can find me. Schoolofrock.com has all of our information there. You can search for locations. You can read about our programs. You can read about opening a franchise and joining our incredible community. And then for Front Women, you can go to frontwomen.org. You can join our mailing list, so you'll never miss a newsletter, and you'll see all of our quarterly events in advance. So if you're able to join, which I hope you can, you come and join the incredible conversation.
I love that. Stacey, thank you so much for joining me here today. And thank you for your openness, your stories, and sharing your journey.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Ivy. Thank you for sharing your story. And I'm so happy that you and your son found School of Rock. And yeah, it's fantastic.
As a mom, I was too. Listeners, thanks for joining us. I'll always say at this point, take a moment, take a breath. Think about what today, in listening to Stacey and I's conversation, was your takeaway, your aha moment. Jot it down somewhere and then make a decision. What is one action you could create for yourself that will have impact to you? Take that forward. If you enjoyed listening, pass this episode forward, hit subscribe. We appreciate all of our listeners, and we appreciate how you share this forward. See you next time with more wonderful interviews and more wonderful guests just like Stacey.